significant developments with the Trump administration on defense for obviously trying to bend or break the law in this ongoing crackdown, as well as new signs of potential meddling in the midterms. I have both of those stories for you right now. We begin with the rule of law cracking. As the Trump campaign's efforts and the Trump administration and whatever you call Donald Trump's sort of roving international politicizing of our issues in America is all turning into direct claims by the president that he can do even more and deploy even more military force in your cities by his own unitary choice. The DOJ also indicting a midterm candidate, so we will get to that. The revelations that undercut the Donald Trump administration's rationale for going into these cities, though, continue to pile up. Remember, one of the big questions in the courts is whether there is the kind of unrest that justifies the president overruling the state role, the normal way that governors participate in National Guard deployments, to go in there. And let's be clear, put aside whatever you think about Donald Trump and his policies. As a general matter, if there is a rebellion or total riot unrest in a part of America, you would expect, rationally, the president to be able to do something about it. I mean, if not the president, then who? And I can tell you, as a quick legal simplification, if you have those kind of events or a rebellion, sure, any president, including this one, can do it. But what if there isn't a rebellion? What if there isn't even much unrest? What if the so-called, quote, unrest that does exist is sometimes happening because federal troops are on the ground, using aggressive tactics, leaning into conflict? Then do you have the lawful administration of troops in the streets? That's not me being a news anchor asking hypothetical questions. That's literally the question right now. And while we cannot prejudge what ultimately will be ruled on in the courts, which still do have the last word on whether you can put troops in the streets for little to no reason, these are questions being tested tonight because apparently the evidence for Trump's view that it's really bad out there in these cities is so thin that they have to fake it rather than show it. Trump's DHS caught manipulating videos to create the false impression that there are violent hotspots in the certain places that they want to deploy. The Washington Post reporting on this problem. They've been busted, including the government. Remember, this is your government. They are answerable to you. This is still a country we have here. And they're using your tax dollars to try to mislead or lie to you about where they're putting troops and what the reasons are. So they have this sort of gussed up footage that is months old, so it doesn't show why the troops would be there right now, or from thousands of miles away. Here's a photograph from Nantucket, Massachusetts, but DHS claimed it was D.C. as the reason for why they have troops in D.C. Here's an image from international waters. Okay, so you have this problem, say, this kind of migration on a boat somewhere, but the DHS falsely claimed it was New York City in order to justify the local patrolling they're doing. Here's a scene from Texas, which, again, happens to be a red state, but Trump's DHS claims that this action going down here, they need help, got to deal with this, yada, yada. They claim it was Chicago. Imagine that. You want to argue that these places are just teeming with crime or immigrants or whatever the problem may be. Sometimes it's ICE agents, so you need an immigrant angle if you're the government. Sometimes it's just general unrest because you want to put some Marines there. And you say it's just out of control. And that's why, obviously, you need to put the people there. And sooner or later, this will be tested in court where you're saying, oh, my God, it's out of control there. And you can't even find enough photographs or videos to fill a short presentation. The fact that they're caught faking this evidence reinforces apparently how hard it is for them to find the actual real evidence of their claimed unrest. So that's a public relations issue. It's a propaganda lying issue. It's a what are they doing with their time and your tax dollars issue. But it's also the kind of problem that could catch up to them in court where the facts are supposed to matter on the evidence of whether there is the unrest to justify the way they're using force. And remember, these are the same folks who've been complaining for years about the media and fake information and so-called, quote, fake news. Well, your government under Donald Trump's DHS is the one pushing fake news right now. And you can spotlight this disconnect with the costumes and the sort of dark humor or fun out there. Why are they in these costumes in these cities? Why are they kind of yucking it up sometimes? Well, several people have pointed out, this isn't new for me, that this is a type of ironic protest, a kind of obvious cultural in-your-face reference that it often looks more like a Halloween party than some terrible immigrant crime riot. And that if they have the freedom and the ability to joke around out there, maybe it's not what DHS claims. And sometimes DHS claims it's just a different city altogether. So that's some of the pressure on Trump right now. He says he'll go forward. He's claiming that he can have even more troops on the ground if he chooses. And these are getting tested in court. There's a panel of judges that are reviewing the effort to send troops to the relatively sedate Portland. And that's grinding on. And that's the backdrop, because the other piece of news I mentioned that I'm about to show you, this possible midterm meddling, standing on its own would be the kind of story where you'd have to fairly say, let's wait and see all the evidence, because there are hundreds of people who run for office, and the fact that one here or there gets in legal trouble isn't automatically midterm meddling. But against the backdrop of what I just showed you, the ongoing use of troops, sometimes potentially against the rules, Trump saying he can do more, credible reports that they want to put troops out around polling stations, they want to do election monitoring, which raises questions of whether it's monitoring or interference. They're openly talking about whether he could steal a third term. His aides say maybe he will. He says maybe he won't. Trump demanding that people he doesn't like be kicked off the air like Jimmy Kimmel, a plot that failed, or be indicted like the New York Attorney General and the former FBI Director Comey. So against that background, what I'm about to show you does not operate in isolation if we are just going to fairly adjudicate the evidence. Today, brand new, something that would be a big deal in any era, but certainly right now, the Trump DOJ has gone in and filed unusual charges, I have them here, unusual charges against a current congressional candidate, a member of the Democratic Party, Kat Abu-Ghazaleh. Now, there's video from September where she was in this group of protesters. This is in front of an ICE vehicle. Now, she claims she was protesting peacefully, and an ICE agent tried to run them over with the SUV. Now, this is the kind of situation that happens sometimes at protests, and certainly is legally debatable. I'm not telling you it's something where there's no way anyone could have ever been charged. But the government is taking a very aggressive approach to the person who's running for office, the person running in the midterms, not necessarily to every other person there. And they say that she, along with a few others, banged aggressively on the vehicle's side and back windows, crowded together in the front and side of the vehicle, and pushed against the vehicle to hinder and impede its movement. And they say somebody etched a message into the body of the vehicle, the word pig. So the DOJ is charging a conspiracy to impede or injure an ICE officer and assaulting or impeding an officer while engaged in their duties. I could just tell you legally, we showed you the video, whether the car was more of a danger to hurt the people or the people were in danger to hurt the car is certainly debatable. Now, she is legally presumed innocent. We will also continue to follow these cases. If there is strong evidence against the defendant, we'll report it like we would anybody else. But we won't do it with our eyes closed as if we don't know what's going on. People said, oh, well, if this happens or if that happens or if that happens, we're way past all of that happening. Some people are concerned. The American public has shown wide opposition to the king-like powers that the president tries to seize. Other people, elites, business elites, apologists, some of the law firms, they keep kind of saying, well, maybe this will naturally slow down. It's not slowing down. This individual is now the 7th person who is a public Trump critic to face this kind of legal action. And what you see on your screen, these people are not united by party or identity or age or geography. You have a longtime Republican, John Bolton, who served in the Trump administration. You have James Comey, call him a moderate or a center-right official. He was previously a registered Republican. He's not exactly beloved by either party, but what puts him on this list is that he had the audacity to stand up to Trump in office and criticize him after he left government service. Then you have others who obviously did pursue the president in their lawful duties when he was a defendant. And so he has publicly demanded to flip the tables. In the lower left, I would remind you, you have a mayor, current Democratic mayor, The case against him fell apart. The charges were dropped. They will grind these on. They don't seem to care or face any embarrassment for that. The list is not getting smaller. The list is growing tonight with the candidate. You might not have heard of her, but she's a midterm candidate in the lower right. And we've seen these type of crackdowns on dissent on the opposition party, raising the sort of disincentive or punishment for anyone who might think about being a critic or running for office. We've seen this abroad. Putin has overseen sham elections where not only do they, of course, control the polling, that's one part, but they also misuse their so-called justice system or their government powers to railroad even the minor sort of token opposition that exists. That is a type of election meddling. You might remember Alexei Navalny. He was the most prominent critic of Putin, but nothing suggested he was going to get close to being allowed to really run in a way that would challenge Putin's power. But he was seen as a rising critic. And so the Putin government went ahead and prosecuted him in a case that was widely derided as completely selective political prosecution. He was held in a Russian jail where he died. Now, other examples that are not quite as stark. You don't have to go full Putin. The former FBI director charged. Attorney General of New York charged. Members of Congress in the opposition party openly threatened that they too would be next. And tonight, a midterm candidate charged. It's not slowing down. And the question is what people in our democracy, while rights are still allowed to be exercised, what people will do about it.